Hello, my name is Gage Lappin, and this is my presentation on the paper Optimizing Moving Target Selection in VR by Integrating Proximity-Based Feedback Types and Modalities. Their motivation behind this research stems from the fact that selecting moving targets in VR or 3D space can be a highly cognitive task. Imagine you're playing basketball in VR. Throw the ball at a net, but it bounces off the backboard. In order to catch it, you'd have to be able to predict the angle it bounced, the speed at which it'll bounce, and whether it's going to move left or right. Lots of factors at play, making it difficult to track the ball as it moves. Current VR methods to simplify this process are quite clunky. For instance, if the ball is moving too fast towards you, it's obviously going to be hard to grab. So a developer may say, okay, you're clearly trying to grab it, so let's make the ball bigger so it's easier to grab. However, now you have this giant ball cluttering your FOV. This breaks immersion and obstructs your UI. So their ultimate goal here was to create some sort of sensory guidance systems, essentially ways to implicitly help users target and select objects. To solve this, they posed four main questions. Firstly, partial feedback. It's a combination of both binary and continuous feedback. So does combining these two actually improve user selection time? Secondly, performance. Are sensory feedback even worthwhile? Do they help reduce user error and movement time in any meaningful way? Thirdly, different modalities. How do these different modalities, such as visual, auditory, and haptic, compare when it comes to error rates and selection times? Lastly, blending. How do combinations of these modalities improve user experience or improve selection time? For instance, having visual auditory versus audio and haptic by themselves. Does their combination reap the benefits of both? Their proposed solution for this was to design modalities centered around proximity-based feedback. They tested 3 different feedback types, binary, continuous, and partial, across 3 different modalities, visual, audio, and haptic. Binary feedback is when there's no feedback until you touch the target. For instance, you try to grab a ball. As you get closer to the ball, nothing happens until you finally grab it. Then the ball changes color, indicating you've grabbed it or can grab it. Second is continuous feedback. It's a gradual change. For visual, for instance, the closer you get to the target, the redder it's going to get until you finally grab it. Lastly is partial. Being a combination of binary and continuous, it has elements of both. For example, with visual, the closer you get to the ball, it's going to keep getting redder until you finally grab it, then it will change in intensity. So it's continuous because as you get closer, it gets redder, and the binary part is it's only once you grab it that the intensity changes. For the first study, they gathered 20 people from a local university to perform reach and select tasks. Each participant had a target moving around in the XY plane about 60 centimeters in front of them. Each participant was tested throughout 9 conditions between binary, continuous, and partial feedbacks combined with visual, audio, and haptic modalities, as well as a baseline condition which had no feedback. Here are the different feedback types and then the different modalities. Each condition was evaluated based on how fast each participant selected the target, how accurate they were when selecting, so how many mispresses did they have before they finally selected it, and finally, how much they enjoyed each condition. Their results were rather interesting. Firstly, and most obvious and expected, the baseline performed worse than the rest. Having no feedback doesn't work well. Any indication for how well you're doing helps tremendously. Surprisingly though, haptic feedback tended to be the fastest of the 3. This is because it's a physical stimulus. You don't have to wait for your eyes to register a color change. The only issue is that in some fast-paced scenarios, it ended up confusing participants. The constant vibration frequency shifts were hard to pick up after a little while. Overall, though, binary feedback ended up being faster and more accurate than continuous. However, users were split on which they preferred. Users greatly preferred partial feedback when it came to the visual modality, since seeing the color change made it easier to track the target. As for final preferences of modality and feedback types, participants preferred visual partial, visual binary, and audio binary. As a follow-up, they conducted a second study, this time with 16 people. Rather than testing all 9 feedback modality combinations, they took the best feedback types from the first study and combined them. They tested all possible combinations between unimodal, bimodal, and trimodal conditions. As expected, the trimodal combination performed the best. It provided a good mix between the 3 modalities and supplied participants with just enough information without overloading them. The results showed that visual feedback ended up being the most important for selection rates. This makes sense since we rely heavily on sight, meaning the slightest changes are easily perceptible, improving selection performance. However, auditory feedback ended up being the best for enhancing user engagement and enjoyment. For instance, imagine playing table tennis in VR. If you couldn't hear the ping pong ball bounce away from you, it wouldn't be very enjoyable. Given all their efforts, the researchers compiled a list of suggestions on the appropriate feedback types given your goal. If you want rapid target selection, visual partial is the way to go. If you want precision, auditory haptic. If you want users to locate a target quickly, use continuous feedback. It operates just like a game of hot or cold. The closer you get, the hotter you are, the more feedback they get. If your main goal is purely for entertainment, then binary audio is best. Being able to hear a ding the second you successfully catch a target feels rewarding and keeps immersion. However, for prolonged tasks such as typing on a virtual keyboard in something like VR chat, it's best to avoid using continuous haptics or audio. Going one step further, though, I think these results are extremely relevant when it comes to VR game development. In fact, I think most of these results are already in practice. These results line up with what feels the most immersive and what mimics the real world. Games like Half-Life Alyx try to be as immersive as possible. For instance, when you use the gravity glove in the game to move objects around, when you first select an object, the gun starts making noises, signifying you've selected something. The controller then vibrates during this process, and then you can see the object move around and jitter around the screen. All three modalities are at play here, from visual, audio, and haptic, and it also employs the same feedback types that were found to be the best in the previous studies: partial visual, binary audio, and binary haptic. To summarize, binary feedback is the best for reducing errors, continuous helps users reach targets faster, partial provides extra info without ruining the experience, visual modality helps determine direction, auditory helps create enjoyment, and haptic gives physical confirmation, reducing errors. Thank you for listening to my presentation.